The world watches with bated breath as tensions between two neighboring nations escalate. India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed nations, stand locked in a tense standoff, their militaries poised for action. Their historic rivalry, rooted in the bloody partition of British India, has once again flared up, bringing back memories of past conflicts. The recent clashes, the most serious in decades, have raised fears of a wider conflict, a conflict that could escalate to unimaginable levels, threatening regional stability. This is not mere hyperbole. The stakes are incredibly high. Both India and Pakistan possess nuclear weapons, weapons capable of unimaginable destruction, capable of altering the course of history. The specter of nuclear war, once a distant nightmare, now looms large over the Indian subcontinent, casting a shadow of fear. The consequences of such a conflict would be catastrophic, not just for India and Pakistan, but for the entire world, affecting millions of lives. The international community is deeply concerned, watching closely and hoping for a peaceful resolution. World leaders are urging restraint, calling for dialogue and de-escalation, emphasizing the need for diplomacy. The stakes are simply too high for anything less, as the clock ticks down ominously. The fate of millions, perhaps billions, hangs in the balance, with the potential for widespread devastation. This is a time for cool heads and clear thinking, a time to step back from the brink and seek a peaceful resolution, through dialogue and understanding. The alternative is too terrible to contemplate, a future marred by destruction and loss. The roots of the India-Pakistan conflict run deep, stretching back to the tumultuous birth of both nations in 1947, a year that marked the end of British colonial rule in the subcontinent. The partition of British India, a hasty and ill-planned affair, unleashed chaos and violence on an unprecedented scale, leading to one of the largest mass migrations in human history. Millions were displaced, their lives upended as they fled across newly drawn borders, seeking safety and a new life amidst the turmoil and uncertainty. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs, once living side by side, were now pitted against each other in a frenzy of religious hatred, fueled by fear and mistrust. The bloodshed was horrific. Estimates vary, but it is believed that over 1 million people perished in the violence, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Countless others were scarred for life, their hearts filled with bitterness and resentment, carrying the trauma of those dark days. The partition left an indelible mark on the psyche of both nations, a wound that has yet to fully heal. It sowed the seeds of mistrust and animosity that continue to poison relations to this day, creating a legacy of conflict and division. The disputed territory of Kashmir became a flashpoint, leading to 3 full-blown wars and numerous smaller conflicts, further entrenching the hostility. The wounds of partition have yet to heal, with families still separated and memories of loss lingering. The pain and suffering of that tumultuous period continue to cast a long shadow over the Indian subcontinent, affecting generations. It is a tragic legacy that continues to haunt both nations, a reminder of the cost of division and the enduring need for reconciliation. The India-Pakistan rivalry took on a terrifying new dimension in the late 20th century, forever altering the geopolitical landscape of South Asia. Both countries, driven by a potent mix of insecurity and ambition, embarked on nuclear weapons programs, each determined to outdo the other. India conducted its first nuclear test in 1974, sending shockwaves across the world and marking a significant milestone in its defense capabilities. Pakistan, fearing Indian aggression and determined to maintain regional parity, vowed to match its nuclear capability. After years of clandestine development and international scrutiny, Pakistan conducted its own series of nuclear tests in 1998. The world watched in horror as the subcontinent teetered on the brink of nuclear war, with tensions reaching unprecedented heights. The nuclear tests ushered in a dangerous new era, one fraught with the potential for catastrophic conflict. The delicate balance of power in South Asia had been irrevocably altered, creating a precarious situation for the entire region. Both India and Pakistan now possessed weapons of mass destruction, capable of annihilating entire cities and causing unimaginable devastation. The international community condemned the tests, imposing sanctions and urging both countries to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue. But the genie was out of the bottle and there was no turning back. The nuclear shadow had fallen over South Asia, casting a long and ominous presence over the future of the region. India's nuclear arsenal, though shrouded in secrecy, is estimated to be substantial. Analysts believe India possesses a diverse stockpile of nuclear warheads, including fission and fusion bombs. These weapons are believed to be mounted on a variety of delivery systems, including ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and aircraft. India maintains a no-first-use policy, pledging to use its nuclear weapons only in retaliation to a nuclear attack. This policy, according to Indian officials, is designed to ensure stability and deter aggression. India's nuclear doctrine emphasizes credible minimum deterrence. This means maintaining a nuclear arsenal sufficient to inflict unacceptable damage on any aggressor, thus deterring them from attacking in the first place. India's nuclear program, while presented as a purely defensive measure, has raised concerns among its neighbors. Some fear that India's growing nuclear might could tempt it to adopt a more assertive, even aggressive foreign policy. Section 5. Pakistan's nuclear program, a shield or a sword. Pakistan's nuclear program is driven by a deep-seated fear of India. Pakistan, smaller and less populous than its neighbor, views its nuclear arsenal as an existential deterrent, a shield against what it perceives as Indian aggression. Pakistan's nuclear doctrine, unlike India's, does not explicitly rule out a first strike. This ambiguity, according to Pakistani officials, is intended to enhance deterrence by keeping potential adversaries guessing. Pakistan's nuclear program is believed to be focused on tactical nuclear weapons, smaller yield devices designed for battlefield use. This has raised concerns about the potential for escalation, as even a limited nuclear exchange could have devastating consequences. Pakistan's nuclear program has been the subject of intense international scrutiny. Concerns about the security of its nuclear materials and the potential for proliferation have fueled calls for greater transparency and oversight. Section 6. The nightmare scenario, a hypothetical strike. The consequences of a nuclear exchange between India and Pakistan are almost too horrific to contemplate. Even a limited nuclear war would result in an unimaginable humanitarian catastrophe. Millions would perish in the initial blasts, and countless more would succumb to radiation sickness and other long-term effects. The explosions would unleash massive firestorms, incinerating everything in their path. The resulting smoke and debris would rise into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and plunging the region into a nuclear winter. The environmental impact would be catastrophic. Radioactive fallout would contaminate vast swathes of land, rendering them uninhabitable for generations. Global food supplies would be disrupted, leading to widespread famine. The economic consequences would be equally devastating. Global trade would grind to a halt, and financial markets would collapse. The world would be plunged into a deep and prolonged recession. Section 7. Global fallout, the world on the brink. A nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan would have profound global implications. The international community would be drawn into the crisis, risking a wider escalation that could spiral out of control. The United States, as a close ally of India and a major player in South Asia, would be forced to intervene. China, a longtime supporter of Pakistan, would also be drawn into the conflict. The conflict would have a devastating impact on global trade and commerce. India and Pakistan are both major economies, and their collapse would send shockwaves through the global financial system. The humanitarian crisis would be unprecedented. Millions of refugees would flee the region, seeking safety and assistance. The international community would be hard-pressed to cope with the scale of the disaster. Section 8. The path to peace. Diplomacy and dialogue. The only way to prevent this nightmare scenario is through diplomacy and dialogue. India and Pakistan must find a way to resolve their differences peacefully through negotiation and compromise. The international community has a crucial role to play in facilitating this process. World leaders must urge restraint and encourage both sides to engage in meaningful dialogue. Confidence-building measures such as increased trade and cultural exchanges can help to reduce tensions and foster trust. International organizations, such as the United Nations, can provide a forum for dialogue and mediation. The stakes are simply too high for anything less than a full-fledged diplomatic effort. The alternative, a nuclear war on the Indian subcontinent, is too terrible to contemplate. Section 9. Conclusion: a fragile peace. The India-Pakistan conflict is a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the nuclear age. The consequences of a nuclear war would be catastrophic, not just for the region, but for the entire world. It is imperative that both sides exercise restraint and seek a peaceful resolution to their differences. The world is watching, hoping that cooler heads will prevail. The future of the Indian subcontinent, and perhaps the world, hangs in the balance.